it sounds really pathetic to say at the age of 32 I've acquired empathy, but I have, and
I'm trying not to laugh, but it just sounds ridiculous. Today I'm going to be going over the idubbbz apology. And people had a lot of thoughts about this the other day. And there was a massive Twitter debate, which I'm also going to go over. Now, I haven't seen this already. I've seen some clips, but I haven't watched it the whole way through. Oh yeah, Ludwig was a part of that debate as well. There was a lot of people who jumped on that thread from Willie Mac Show.
For a while I felt like if I changed my content over time, that people would see that as a reflection of who I am and what I value. You know, if I'm gonna have the balls to go to Tana's fan meetup and say slurs at her and then make a video about how it's okay to say slurs, I think I should have the balls to make an apology video and take accountability for the mistakes I've made. I've realized that I need to be crystal clear about what I believe, so there's no room for ambiguity. I am responsible for creating a lot of hurtful and damaging content on this channel, and I've also created a culture of apathy and, I don't know, a lot of like cruelty as well. Like, you know, some of the videos I've made have been very not edgy. I don't think they you know, some of these videos were edgy. I think they were just outright cruel. So I don't want people to, you know,
Ninja to get involved too. She reached out to Ian about potentially having him on her canceled podcast. Oh, that might be interesting too. But so far, I'm only a little bit familiar with the old idubbbz. So, piecing things together little by little.
Get it confused about, you know, where I stand. I have made some cruel, hurtful content, and I need to acknowledge that, and I'm really sorry that it's taken me this long to acknowledge it. I was morally grandstanding and acting as if I am any better than any of these people that I was making content cop videos on, and I'm not. I'm a human, I'm a real human who makes mistakes, and, you know, I make a different set of mistakes than the people I was making videos on, but it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone deserves that level of cruelty or hate. It's also indoctrinated a lot of people into thinking that this is an okay way to behave. You know, I ended up pivoting it into other things because I felt bad about it. Like,
From what I've heard, the bad things that were done in the idubbbz videos were just the slurs and maybe some light bullying, from what I understand. But a lot of people say he did have valid criticisms mixed in. So, in a way, see, it's kind of like Leafy's content. Like I said, I'm not really super familiar with idubbbz. I used to watch Leafy when I was a teenager, so I kind of know how that goes.
And I think if I had to rely on my personality to entertain people, that I wouldn't have any amount of success. And that is really hard to come to terms with. And, you know, I said a lot of things that I look back at and I cringe now, and I'm like, that is an awful thing to say. It doesn't matter what my intentions are. Like, if I'm hurting people, I'm hurting people. And, you know, who the fuck knows what my intentions are? Like, sarcasm and like jokiness and jokey tone only goes so far, especially over the internet.
He's right in the regard about humor. It is very subjective, so things can get lost in translation really easily.
I've just always had this dumb philosophy that I'm not responsible for, you know, my audience and how they behave beyond what content I put out. And that's stupid, and it's led to a lot of hate and a lot of bad outcomes. And I just want to make it clear that I am absolutely responsible for my audience. And you know, I guess if you want to, you know, look out for people.
I feel like that's going a bit far. saying that you are responsible. It really depends on what it is you've done to be responsible for them. Like, did you, I don't know, shell out a crypto and they bought it? Like, or are we just saying, because you said slurs, people said slurs, but at the end of the day, the people who did that, because I seen a part of the idubbbz interview with Anthony Padilla, is like, they chose to do that. It wasn't you telling them specifically to do that. I find that odd. Let's see, Mr. Gamer. I don't see an issue with him switching his content. Everyone kept choosing to hyperfixate on that. My problem was he highlights this in moral grandstanding he took. I'm feeling this is being made into a bigger issue. Like, it's giving creators a lot more power than they should to say that, you know, their content basically shaped a generation of people, which may or may not be true to a degree, but it just seems weird to me.
People who are red flags, it's definitely people who had my mentality that say, I'm not responsible for what my audience does. I shouldn't be able to just make an apology video and walk away from it. This is something that I should live the rest of my life with, and I expect to. I've profited off of this bigoted content for years, and I've made a successful career out of it, and that's not right. I don't feel like a lot of this content represents me as a person, at least not anymore. There was a time where it probably perfectly represented me because I was a nasty, apathetic, insecure person. Now that I don't feel like it represents me and I want to distance myself from it and keep it from, you know, indoctrinating more people.
I personally didn't think that the idubbbz character was actually him. I feel like a lot of people back in I'd say, the late 2010s were putting on a persona, amplifying things, being really edgy just for the sake of being edgy. The way he's seeming is that is just him, and it wasn't an amplified character of him, which is kind of strange.
To unlist the videos so that people, you know, can access them still for whatever, you know, purposes they might want to do that for. But it's not being proliferated on the website. I feel like that's the best solution, at least for the time being. You know, you can like content, but you can also think that it's irresponsible and it's hurting other people. So just tap into that part of your brain that's saying like, oh, okay, it's probably not that important that this video stays online. We can let it go. I'm sorry to everyone that I made content cop videos on. I still don't like the majority of you, and that's fine, but I can recognize that you did.
At least he was honest about that. Yeah, idubbbz can change. That's completely up to him. I do believe that he should keep the videos in an archive of some kind, because why delete history? I mean, that never goes well.
Did not deserve the hate and harassment that I sent your way. I particularly want to apologize to Tana. Tana, I'm sorry. I should have never made that video. I harassed Tana in person and then harassed her online, and that's deplorable behavior. I have made content that I'm proud of over the years. It hasn't been as consistent as maybe I'd like it to have been, but you know, there is a lot of content that I think had a net positive on the world, and you know, I'm going to strive to continue on that trend. But again, I'm absolutely going to continue to make mistakes, but I want the mistakes to be a lot smaller and a lot less serious.
You know, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I really do appreciate the support, and you know, thank you for coming.
That was addressing the people over the years that I neglected and I left behind.
Honestly, I kind of want to look back at his content cops to get a little more clarity of what exactly he's talking about. I've only seen one that was heavily censored, not the original. With Tana, there's probably lots of things which she can be criticized for. Like, I remember TanaCon, which I'm not sure if that's what it was about, but she definitely deserved criticism for that back then.
People whose feelings I, didn't take into consideration, those are the people who I was addressing as, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Anyone who thinks that I should be shouting the N-word from the rooftops, I don't want to be your cup of tea. Now I want to talk about, one year I was at a convention and a bunch of fans were, wanting pictures, and this particular fan came up to me and said, I know you probably don't like transgender people, but can I, get a picture? That smacked me in the face. I was like, oh, holy shit. Why would you think that? But I mean, it was fairly obvious. I was being cruel, hateful, bigoted, and being very uncaring about people's feelings. That is a very fair assessment to make. I was giving this person bad vibes.
Now that specific interaction, that would make sense to trigger a huge change. Because if the people who are in your community feel like they are not even cared about or liked, that does breed something toxic, at least in my opinion, within the community.
I was basically trying to walk back my Tana content cop. I was still very insecure and uncomfortable with the fact that I made that video, and but I was still coping.
So I just wanted to let you talk on that, right? Because obviously using the N-word is definitely frowned upon by a lot of people, especially by a non-African American, but I was just curious.
That was a very weird video because I wanted to criticize her for her sort of flagrant use of it. I've been pretty flagrant about it too, not in the same way. I thought there was a message to be shared there, and I don't think it was particularly. It was okay in criticizing her, but I think I probably wasn't the person to deliver the message. I don't regret making the video. I think there's bits and pieces to take from it that I think are valuable, but I probably wouldn't make it these days.
I don't feel like he should regret necessarily making it, but maybe how he went about making it. Like has been thought, there's been some valid criticisms in his content, but there's been a lot of other things that kind of makes it not age well, just to put it nicely.
I was saying slurs and I was trying to justify it all. A very big thing that has sort of altered my view on all of this is just the amount of hate and harassment my wife Anissa has received over the years. She's had to deal with it from the beginning of our relationship, and I have done a horrible job at acknowledging her and her feelings for it. A lot of the time I just thought that was her problem, or that was other people's problem. It's not my problem that you're getting hate and harassment. And it's no, it absolutely is. That's the culture that I cultivated, and I didn't do anything to change that.
I don't really feel like the harassment his wife gets is his fault. I feel like putting that on himself is unnecessary. Whether he says he cultivated it or not, but people are going to say what they're going to say on the internet.
And this year I decided to speak more candidly and be more open about who I am as a person, and to speak on my life a little bit more. And I did that on Anthony Padilla's podcast. These are the people that I'm attracting. These are the people that I'm entertaining. I need to reevaluate things. They're relating and enjoying this content for a reason, and that's not maybe the same reason that I'm trying to make. I had a very Wild West mentality when it came to online behavior. People are going to do what they want to do. People are going to say what they want to say.
That's true. People are going to do what they're going to do and say what they're going to say. Oh, and then Anissa was already getting hate before Ian. So he really shouldn't blame himself for that.
Can pretty much do the same because it's the internet. But I think you have to be a lot more responsible. There is a clip from this interview that's been floating around the internet, and it's me calling my fans antisocial and basement dwellers, and I was like, I didn't like, interacting with my fans. I just want to be clear, that was my realization. I think a lot of people are like, of course that happened, is because you were creating that culture and you were attracting those people. And it's yes. It was easy for me to identify them struggling when they were outside of my body, so I needed the mirror to be held up to me. In closing, I want to say that I have always thought that I was an empathetic person. There were moments where like a dog would die in a film and I'd cry. So it's like, of course I have empathy. But I never did. I think only in these past couple of years have I gained the ability, empathy, and I'm very ashamed to admit that. It sounds really pathetic to say at the age of 32 I've acquired empathy, but I have, and
I'm trying not to laugh, but it just sounds ridiculous. Empathy is something that is learned. It's a learned skill, at least in my opinion. I took a class in interpersonal communication, so most people don't know how to empathize or really communicate with other people. The way he said it just sounded so odd to me.
But like feel for other people's pain and suffering now. I'm still not perfect, and I just want you guys to know that you can unlock ability empathy if you experience more life. It might take you getting hurt a little bit, but it's worth it.
I feel like he put way too much on himself. Like an unhealthy level of pressure. To some degree, I feel, creators put whatever they put out into the universe. But it is on the people who watch the content at the end of the day to do what they want with the content. And to put everything on the content creator, especially if they're not saying, go attack someone or, go get scammed. It just seems odd. It would definitely negatively affect somebody's mental health to say, well, everything is your fault. Like, this bad thing that happened is because you cultivated this audience. This is the tweet that started this massive debate on Twitter.
Clear that I am absolutely responsible for my audience. If you want to, look out for people who are red flags, it's definitely people who had my mentality that say, I'm not responsible for what my audience does.
I completely agree, and there are so many content creators out there that just leave that at the door. They turn on, they go in their computer and they do their content and do this, and the second they're offline, they just let the snowball go down the hill. You are absolutely responsible for your audience and what they're saying and doing and what's happening in different discords and stuff. You have to. No one else can be. You are the mother that birthed that audience, right? They are a reflection of you. It makes me sick to think of what you guys might say and do in other channels. That's why I'm very strict here.
I agree to a smaller extent. I just don't like how he says you're the mother that birthed the community because, well, everyone's their own individual person. And you can't exactly mediate every single thing that they do. All you can do is be open about your position and hope that people that are not good people, don't join the community. I guess you birthed me, maybe. It's just a funny way of putting it. I must have birthed this community. Anyways, Willie Mac says, you are not responsible for your audience unless you directly tell them to do something. They are their own people. If you have 100,000 viewers, statistically speaking, one of them is going to be unhinged. Very likely. Small percent, but still, it's likely it's gonna happen. If 99 people like sarcastic humor and the 100th person doesn't get it, is that my fault? No. It's yours for being an idiot. We cannot stupid-proof the world, otherwise we won't be able to do anything. Fair. We can't really bubble wrap the internet for everyone. And this was Ludwig's response. The argument that statistically 1 out of 100,000 people will be unhinged, so you bear no responsibility on the other 999. There's too many nines. My brain cannot handle it. Is incredibly weak. So if someone in Ludwig's community, I hate that word. I'm gonna skip over it.
English, mother. Do you speak it?
I can't speak today. So he's gonna bear responsibility for all his viewers? He has a lot more than most people do. No, it just seems bad to put so much responsibility on content creators. Like, at the end of the day, we're just people. Do you genuinely believe that influencers have absolutely zero influence over people? And do you think creators hold no responsibility if they influence people negatively? The idea that creators hold absolutely no responsibility for negative influence is so ignorant. I'd say in the spectrum, it's just the content you put out, the people who come to it is just what it is. Willie says, nobody said that. Obviously, if you spread misinformation, scam, or tell your audience to harass someone, that's on you. I'm just saying I'm not their dad just because they watch my YouTube videos. Stop shoving words in my mouth. You do this all the time and it's annoying. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Content creators are not your parents. That is just a fact. They might be like parentally figures, but that does not make them your parent. And that doesn't mean that they need to be responsible. There's only so much you can hold creators accountable for, but being a parent is just not one. At least to your viewers. It kind of depends on what it is and situation. That's the word. Each situation is subjective. So say like the Save the Kids coin, definitely the influencer should bear responsibility because that was a rug pull crypto scam. If you say something and then somebody copies you saying something, then it's kind of weird to say they bear all that responsibility. Oh wait, Ninja. That's who I was forgetting. You aren't responsible for them, but you have responsibility to be a good role model and leader, especially when you're talking about sensitive topics. Coming from him, that doesn't sound exactly perfect.
I see some movement. I'm not seeing enough movement.
How do you pick and choose which of your audience members you're responsible for and which you aren't then? This line of reasoning makes no sense. Fair. It doesn't really. I feel like Ninja's done plenty of things that he wouldn't be a very good role model for.
What, baby?
He's a human, just like everyone else.
I'm not seeing enough movement.
Just to restate how I feel in this situation, I don't believe content creators are responsible for every single member of their audience and what they do, especially when it comes to people who have audiences full of adults. Unless they are promoting a scam or telling them to incite something, then I don't believe they should be held responsible. Content creators abuse their power often, and it shouldn't be misconstrued to where it is taken so lightly that little things are now the fault of the content creator. It's just like overusing words. Eventually, it loses its impact. And that is the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. But now I would like to thank my channel members, especially my Super Nekos. It means a lot to me that you are supporting the channel. And if you have any recommendations for future streams or videos, please leave them in the Discord in video and stream suggestions. And I will see you all next time.